Hello, everyone. I believe we have around 200 people that are supposed to be here today. I can't see that many. It's probably around 100 people, but it's still good. Today we're gonna have presentation about Bitcoin, and it's so special because we've got this amazing expert, Giacomo. You can ask him any question during the question and answer time. And he's going to give you a presentation about deep dive on Bitcoin. He's going to present current challenges and in really like expert way. And then we're going to have a presentation, a break around 8. There should be a break. So, you know, like if it's 8 and you're hungry, then, you know, just go and grab food because he's not going to finish on time. That's not happening. So just go and get some food. And then in half an hour, we should start with Jonathan's presentation. And Jonathan is right there. Hello. And Jonathan will speak about early Bitcoin industry, and it's super interesting story about how Bitcoin was evolving and how did his journey with building a Bitcoin business looked like. So, you know, I think it's not a great idea to have both of us on the stage because we talk a lot. So I guess I'm just gonna pass the mic to Giacomo and welcome him on the stage.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here and for organizing this very successful meetup. Of course, this meetup is brought to you for free by the organizers. And it would be so nice if there was some way to actually donate to them simply, but I don't know. I don't know any way to do that. Let's imagine something. I'm going to talk to you for basically 40 minutes, which means an hour, about open Bitcoin challenges, and then to have 20 minutes, which means 40 minutes, Q&A session. Just to have a brief, I introduced myself. I'm a theoretical physicist. I worked in Accenture for 4 years in fintech stuff. Then I quit to do Bitcoin stuff. And right now I'm directing the BHB Network Initiative, which is basically something like this. We take the incumbents, financial incumbents like banks, insurances, or consultancy companies, or technology providers. They have a lot of money to spend on Bitcoin, but they know nothing about Bitcoin. They have negative knowledge. They know a few things and they are wrong, but they have a lot of money to spend on that. On the other hand, we have real experts, not like me, the real experts, probably 200 people among this planet, and they have a lot of vertical knowledge, but not really a lot of financial resources and business experience or will to do business stuff. They don't care about business models. They don't care about relationship with incumbents. Their job is just to be expert, Bitcoin expert. They are usually the hacker stuff. So what we do is basically an arbitrage among these guys and these guys. We take money from here. We use the money to help them to build their open source solution for free independently. And we take the knowledge that we extract here in order to give the best possible consultancy and to explain to incumbents what is going to happen. So this day, I'm going to talk about Bitcoin open challenges. Since many of you will probably, I assume, be new on this stuff, how many of you consider yourself like a new buyer, like just heard about Bitcoin, not really into it, just exploring the idea? Raise your hands. Don't be shy. Not me. Also, so I assume all the others are experienced Bitcoiners, and so we'll go very, very deep. I will do it difficult. Bitcoin is great, of course. As most of you know, Bitcoin is basically a technological stack that includes a peer-to-peer architecture with an open source software, which is something that we already had in the 70s and 80s. It includes digital signature, which is something we also had in the 70s and the 80s. It includes proof of work, which is a new concept invented for Hashcash in the late 90s. But it also, well, not in the late 80s, actually. But it also includes the blockchain concept, which is a new idea, not really a technological idea, it's more an economical idea. It's a smart way to put all this stuff together in a nice economical game that actually works as for incentives. What Bitcoin does, it allows for the first time a digital scarcity without intermediaries. So on internet we can exchange information without intermediaries, but we cannot exchange scarce resources, so economical goods, because information is never scarce. We can multiply information. I give one data to you, you give it to the other people, and the data will just expand and multiply. While goods, money, assets, tokens, they are scarce, and scarcity didn't exist on the digital realm before Bitcoin. It was a blockchain idea that completed the stack to create scarcity. Also, we have, very importantly, a censorship-resistant transactions platform. So we can donate to WikiLeaks without anyone being able to stop us. We can, I will never do that, but somebody could buy illegal recreative substances on the dark net. Of course, nobody in this room, because it will be illegal, but somebody could. We could pay to donate to a controversial cause. We could maybe fly capital from China or from Venezuela. We could do a lot of censorship-resistant stuff. Also, we can have an independent store of value, like a digital gold. We can be independent from the choices of central banks, quantitative easings, LTROs, manipulation of interest rates, all these nice stuff that created the economic crisis in 2008 and will probably create other economic crises. We can be independent from that with this new digital gold. Of course, we can be independent from that with normal gold, but it's not really the best choice for internet age. Digital gold, physical gold is not the best for e-commerce, or it's not really 2017, but still good. Also, we have a global, open, permissionless innovation platform. Basically, since now we can do stuff that wasn't possible to do before because it was not permitted, now we can innovate more, we can find new protocols, new idea, new business models, new monetization model. Most of them will not work, and they will fail, but some of them will prove to be very innovative. So Bitcoin is great, but it's not everything. Everything is not just easy and perfect. There are several problems here. I will talk to you about some of these problems. One is the problem which is most discussed in these days, probably, which is the scalability problem. The second problem, which is less discussed, but in my opinion is more important than the scalability one, is the privacy problem. Then we have an expressivity, some expressivity challenges. So how much expressive can your smart contract be on Bitcoin? And then the user experience challenges. And then one of the most difficult to handle, but also and to grasp, but one of the most important one is the political independence challenge of Bitcoin. Starting with the first, scalability. Everybody is talking about scalability. Blockchain was the missing piece of the puzzle to create Bitcoin after proof of work, digital signature, and peer-to-peer architecture. But this last piece of the puzzle actually destroyed scalability properties of previous digital cash schemes. So if you think about older digital cash experiments like eCash or like B-Money, all these digital cash experiments, they didn't assume every node of the network knowing every information of every transaction of every other people on the network. Blockchain is a scheme in which, in order to maintain a single unique history, every node should be aware of everything. This is very, very bad for scalability. This is called global consensus. Everybody must agree about everything. That's something that is intrinsically connected with the blockchain idea, and it's not scalable. What I mean with not scalable, right now Bitcoin can sustain something like 7 theoretically, 3 more practically transactions every second. After SegWit, so right now it will be possible gradually to get to almost 4 times that, so it would be something like 12 transactions per second, or 28 transactions per second in theory. As you can imagine, this is nothing. This is not enough to create a global financial system. Probably the fidelity points of a supermarket cannot, this is not enough for that use case. So blockchain are very difficult to scale in this way. This means that few people, this means 2 things. First, that to enter this scarce resource, you will have to pay a lot. At the beginning, it was like, it appeared like Bitcoin was free, but it was just because other people was paying for the externalities, and nobody was really using that. Right now, a transaction in Bitcoin could cost some dollars, and it could get worse in the future. It will probably get worse when more people will come into Bitcoin. Also, you have to pay, and if you don't pay, you have to wait. There is a trade-off between cost and time. If you pay very much, then you will probably outcompete the other transaction. You will enter in the first block, but you are paying a lot of fees, which is not good for microtransaction. And even if you pay very much, you will never get instant confirmation. Bitcoin will always ask you to wait for average 10 minutes times n, depending on how much money are you moving, because you have to wait for confirmation. So Bitcoin will never be instant, and never was, and it will be slow if you don't pay a lot of money. Of course, it will be expensive if you want to be fast. If you want to wait, you can get more and more cheap, but never zero, because the cost of a Bitcoin transaction in the network, if you sum up the electricity cost and the hardware cost and the refrigeration cost, is probably around $12 to $15 right now, and it could go worse. So blockchain doesn't scale because of global consensus. Of course, we could decide to have scale without scalability. So let's assume that we want more transaction per second, and so the only thing we do is just to have blocks every 5 minutes instead of every 10, but that's not going to work, because in order to have the same security of 1 10-minute block, we will need actually at least 2 5-minute blocks. And these, in return, will centralize the network, because the orphan rate, so the advantage of a big miner and of a big node versus a small miner, a small node, will be higher, and so you will have a centralization of the network. So was Satoshi Nakamoto just crazy? Why did he choose 10 minutes and not 1 second? I want a confirmation after 1 second, so it's I can have more blocks and more transaction. Well, because if you don't do that, you will get centralization. And if you get centralization, you don't have censorship resistance anymore, because if they want to stop you from paying WikiLeaks, and there is just 3 big regulated expensive data centers in the world mining Bitcoin or validating Bitcoin, then the US government can just call these data centers, ask them, please stop validating or mining this transaction, and they will, because if they don't, they will force them to, like they did with PayPal, with Linden Dollars, with eCash, with Liberty Reserve, so every censorship-prone platform, and they will stop the transaction. So if you just have fast blocks, you get centralization. If you just want big blocks, and this is the annoying and very never-ending debate, you get the same result because you will have an unfair advantage for big miners and for big nodes at expenses of small miners and small nodes with selfish mining attacks and other stuff like that. Of course, the numbers chosen by Satoshi are not, are magic numbers. I mean, he just had to guess. He said 1 megabyte and 10 minutes. He could have said 20 minutes and half a megabyte, and so the net will be even more expensive or slow, or 5 minutes and 2 megabytes, so the network will be cheaper and faster but more centralized. Probably, if you have to choose, you want to go in the safer, you want to give up scalability for censorship resistance. Why? Because if your goal is to have scalability, you already have very good solutions for that. They're called Visa, MasterCard, PayPal. If you don't want to pay something which is permissionless, if you want just to pay for something which is completely permissioned and it's already okay, you don't really need blockchain or Bitcoin or whatever. We have very, very effective fintech startups, TransferWise, PayPal for business, for private. We have the solution. They're called financial databases, and they work very well. Better than a blockchain, actually. A blockchain is more inefficient than a database. So we can have scale, but we cannot have a scalability. What are the solutions to this challenge? Well, Bitcoin Cash is the first kind of attempt on a solution, and it's called on-chain scaling. What is on-chain scaling? So I just want bigger blocks and faster blocks. In order to have that with centralization, there's no problem. I mean, I just fork Bitcoin, I raise the block size, or I lower the block time, and I have more transaction per second. Bitcoin Cash did the first thing, and they get more centralization. Of course, if you want to do that, you're giving up the decentralization and the censorship resistance. But what if you want to do that without giving up this decentralization and censorship resistance? Well, you can do that. It's not impossible to do that. You can scale on-chain with bigger blocks and faster blocks, but you have to be patient and very wary and to wait for at least 3 things to happen. For example, it's not just Bitcoin Cash fork that rises the block size to 8 megabyte. Segregated witness on Bitcoin actually did rise the block size to, let's say, in theory, 4 megabyte, a little less than 4 megabyte. In practice, until people will start to use SegWit format transaction, it will be lower, probably 2 megabyte. Right now, there are blocks bigger than 1 megabyte on the main net. The problem with that is that before you can do that, you have to wait for 3 things to happen simultaneously or in parallel or in series, it doesn't matter. The first is cost optimization. So since you don't want for a full node to become too expensive to synchronize for an average guy, because if the average guy, if I create a new clone of WikiLeaks, and I want to maintain it, and I want to synchronize the blockchain to be sure that I've been paid, if I have to wait for 7 days to synchronize the blockchain, I will probably trust a central server instead of synchronizing my own full node. And then I will be very easy to, if everybody does that, or if a huge majority of people does that, it will be very easy to censor Bitcoin, because you will just have to target the very big and very expensive third-party solution that gives you the validation of the block. So already now, who is in this room have a private, trusted, I mean your own, not other people's, full node synchronized with the blockchain on Bitcoin? Raise your hands. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 4 people in this room, 5 if you count me in. That's not very good for censorship resistance. It's still better than just 1, probably, but 4 in a room of almost 200 people is very, very bad. So, of course, just pay more for your computer and for your internet connection. Just wait 3 days for the loading. That's exactly the same sentence than just pay your fees, your super huge fees, or just wait 2 days for a transaction. As you can see, it's the same topic, but with different targets. You have to say, you can go very fast in transacting, but you will go very, very, very slow and very, very expensive in validating. Or you can say, you will be very, very fast and cheap for validating, but it will be very, very slow and very, very expensive to transact. Where do you want to be here? My point, and maybe we will discuss that in the questions, maybe you don't agree with me, but I'm right. So my point is that you don't want to stay in the middle of that. You want to stay safely on the validation side of the trade-off. Because if Bitcoin is very expensive to use and very slow to use, but censorship resistant, it is something new that we didn't have before. If Bitcoin is very, very cheap and fast to use, but not censorship resistant, even by mistake, even because we just didn't think about it very, very extensively, then we just lost every unique characteristic of Bitcoin, and we are just left with a very inefficient database. So my point, which is right, would be that you want to stay on the safe side of this trade-off. So, what if I want bigger blocks or faster blocks? I want the people to be able to, maybe not to have 100 full nodes in this room, but at least maybe 50. For sure, I don't want to get worse than we are now. I don't want to go from 4 to 1. So I want the cost of running a full node or running a mining node, which is even more expensive for ASICs. I want that to be the minimum possible. So first, I will go to optimize the cost. So imagine that downloading a blockchain, synchronizing the blockchain will cost less. And I imagine that validating the signature will cost less. Imagine that the space and the memory and the processor time you are taking is less and less and less because we are optimizing the cost. Then, after we get more full nodes, then we can, we can ask them more, and we can reduce them again with more overload. So first you optimize the cost, and then you rise the scale without the scalability. So that's the SegWit style of operation. SegWit increases the block size of 2 to 4 times, but before SegWit makes easier to validate the signatures with the SIGHASH quadratic, SIGOPS quadratic. Validating signature is easier, faster, and less expensive. Store the blockchain, prune the blockchain is easier, so you will take less space. Right now, Bitcoin 0.15 is basically, I don't remember how many times faster than the previous version in validating the signature. Probably, a good deal faster than the previous version. So, one solution to the scalability is work a lot to optimize the cost, and then we can scale on-chain. Or, at the same time, we can just do nothing on the Bitcoin software. We just wait, and the technology will probably grow, and so the bandwidth of the internet will get better, the space on the disk will get better, the power of the processor will get better. This is something that happens. It's not strictly predictable because Moore's law is not a guarantee forever. It doesn't go always the same way. It can have serious setbacks. There are worst-case scenarios that you have to take into account. But still, if you wait a lot and if you are very patient, you can have a technology growth which is so much that now you will be able to have a Bitcoin with 5-minute blocks or 10 megabytes block or whatever. This is possible, but it takes time. The third things that you have to be aware of is that you have to maintain the political independence of the protocol, which I will talk about this extensively at the end of my talk. But basically, if some political actor wants to attack Bitcoin, to control Bitcoin, to centralize Bitcoin, they have to act on two sides. The first, they have to promote centralization, because the fewer and the bigger the nodes are, the easier it is to attack them. A super huge mining farm, it's easier to control than a very small CPU mining distributed pool. So they will have to push for centralization. So if they see a trade-off between decentralization and difficult user experience, and centralization and easier user experience, the bad actors that wants to attack Bitcoin will always push in the second direction, because it's more convenient to control Bitcoin. Also, every change of this kind of on-chain scalability, since you have to somehow hack, violate or change the rules of Bitcoin, even SegWit, even if it's a soft fork, it's something like a hack. You actually have bigger blocks, even if you trick the system into believing that you are not. So since you are changing Bitcoin, you are opening a door, because Bitcoin rules are changing, and if they are changing, it's the right time for someone to get into the debate or to get into the development and push for some different direction. And I mean, it would be naive to think that an innovation that can disrupt central banks and tax agencies and everything, it would be naive to think that nobody is actually caring about that and nobody will try some countermeasure. So you can scale on chain, having a blockchain that will be bigger and faster, but you can do that only after you optimize the cost, after you wait for technological growth, and you stay synchronized with technological growth. Like if we have a block time that decreases every year, and the block size that increases every year, and then something geopolitical happens and technology trends start to reverse for a few years, then we are in trouble, because we consider the growth exponential or linear, and it's not. And the third thing is that we have to be very wary of political attack surfaces and attack vectors. So this is for on-chain scaling. I just have a blockchain, but I will make it bigger and faster. There is a second idea, which is to get rid of the actual blockchain design at all. So global consensus, which is a characteristic of the blockchain, is bad because it's not scalable. It's not very easy to scale it. And if we scale it, we lose decentralization. So what we do instead is we get rid of the initial design and we try with a new design. One example of this is actually Mimblewimble. I don't know how many of you researched for that or had an occasion to look at that. Mimblewimble is an idea created by anonymous developer or cryptographer Lord Voldemort, and by many others Harry Potter characters on the group. They are developing this pseudo-anonymously this protocol. This is a protocol that is still a blockchain. There are still blocks connected to each other, but it is a blockchain that is very, very easy to prune. So you can take a lot of data out of this blockchain and still prove that the history is one and it is consistent. Mimblewimble doesn't solve any scalability problem. It solves some scalability problem, like the dimension of the blockchain will actually not go very, very high, and will probably, the Mimblewimble blockchain can actually get smaller and smaller with the going of time, which is something incredible. But still, UTXO set is huge, transactions are huge, bottleneck in time and validation are worse, so it's not a perfect scalability solution. Also, the question will be, how do we change Bitcoin into that? It's not trivial, and if we open this door, bad actors can infiltrate the debate in order to change it in a different way that we want it to go. So this is nice, this is interesting. I suggest everybody of you to take a look at that and to try to understand it. I cannot, but I pretend I do. You can do the same. You talk with your friends about Mimblewimble, you pretend to understand the cryptography, you will look very smart. Then there is another concept which is called proof chains. This is mostly the work of cryptographer, applied cryptographer and core developer Peter Todd. Is not easy to follow this work because Peter changes the name of this project basically every week. He will talk about client-side validation, proof chain, proof Marshall, tree chain, DEX. But yeah, basically the name continues to change. I will try to use this for this presentation, but probably is already out of date. The concept is similar to what Ethereum guys are trying to do with sharding, with the concept of sharding. So the idea is, I will keep a blockchain, but not just a unique blockchain for for all the transaction history. I will actually create a tree of different nested blockchains, and the security of one transaction will not be 0 or 1, will increase with this nested design. The idea is that we move the global consensus to somehow a local consensus without losing the characteristic of the blockchain. This is hard to do. We are not sure it is possible to do that. Probably it is possible. To change Bitcoin in this way, anyway, will be super hard. Peter is working on that. Let's hope he will manage to do that, but it's very, very difficult. Ethereum guys are talking about sharding since ages, and it's not so easy to do that. Then you have other innovation that you keep the blockchain, but you change the order of the events. But the scalability benefits that you get with this stuff are trivial, and I'm not very interested in that, so I will not explain it. Then you have completely blockchain-less designs. You get rid of the blockchain as a concept, and you get to something else. For example, right now there is this scam coin, but nothing personal. Every altcoin is a scam coin. IOTA. IOTA is based on an old idea that was initiated with the DAG coin and then with Utah, and now there is also Byteball and other few scam coins. And they're based on the concept of directed acyclic graph or tangle, and on the concept of briding. The idea is that instead of having one chain, you create a graph that is free to diverge, so the history can diverge, but then there will be a strong incentives for transactors to merge two different branches, two different consistent branches, so without a double spending, inside one single transaction and to go on with the history. The problem with this idea is that it doesn't work, but in theory, it could work and it will be wonderful because right now people will present IOTA like you don't have miners. That's true because you have the transactors that now have to operate like miners. And if it gets more valuable, they will start to have ASICs for that, just like in the miners. And transactions are free. No, transactions are not free. They cost proof of work, which is money. And so in a way or the other, you will pay for that. So there is no free lunch, as you know, except here for the meetup, but it's not free. You have to donate. So there is no free lunch. And IOTA will not be free. What is better with Tangle concept, if we could make it work, is that there are not magical numbers. Everything is emergent. So you don't have 1 megabyte block in 10 minutes. You just have a organic diverging of the graph, and then you have an incentive mechanism that keep it together again, once again. So it's more elegant from a theoretical point of view. And also it can help to get against selfish mining attacks. And if you do that, then you can scale with less centralization. So it's interesting. I'm not saying that this concept is not interesting for research. The first problem is that nobody managed to actually make it work in a convergent way. So they use snapshots with our checkpoints, which are centralized solution, very, very easy to censor. So nobody is doing a decentralized system like this. And also, how can you change Bitcoin into this? Very difficult. I will discuss it a little bit later, maybe with a side chain or something, which will not be a side chain, it will be a side tangle, anyway. Different design. I can have a bigger blockchain, or I can have something which is not really a blockchain, or, and this is in my opinion, the most realistic and promising in the short-term line of research, I can have off-chain scaling, which are examples of off-chain scaling. So since the blockchain is unscalable, is difficult to scale, I will not use the blockchain unless it is absolutely necessary to use the blockchain, and I will use other things, and I will still keep the blockchain as a fundamental level in order to maintain censorship resistance and permissionlessness and financial freedom and privacy and whatever. So the first very trivial example is a trusted third party. Trusted third party means that if I have a Coinbase wallet, Coinbase account, so if Coinbase is storing my Bitcoin, and Sonia has a Coinbase account, and I have to pay Sonia, of course, and now I have to broadcast a transaction, but I don't really need to hit the blockchain with that. Since my money is into Coinbase public address, and her money is there as well, I will just ask Coinbase to do a MySQL transaction, which are very scalable, and they can just update the name of the owner inside their database, and I will not hit the blockchain. Of course, I did use the blockchain initially when I deposited my money on Coinbase. She will hit the blockchain when she withdraws her money from Coinbase to her private wallet, but in the meantime, we can have free, instant transactions, which is, I mean, it's fine unless we are trusting someone else, and they can censor us, and they do. Coinbase, if you try to withdraw your money and then you try to spend it on gambling, they will actually trace your transaction and they will blacklist your account. They do that, and if they didn't, the government will ask them to do that. So that's a problem. Also, maybe Coinbase, like some exchange, they want to go fractional reserve. I mean, why do they have to keep all the Bitcoins of all the users if the user only withdraw a small part of that? So, yay, fractional reserve bank. That's something dangerous, of course. Banks are doing that, and it's very dangerous. And but when banks will fail, the government will probably steal your money in order to save them. While if Coinbase bankrupts, the government will luckily not steal your money to save it. So the loss will be on the account owner. There are some way to make this better, like proof of storage, proof of reserve, proof of reserve. So I can have a cryptographic proof that my trusted counterparty actually does have all the Bitcoins. So I can know if it is solvent, if it has been hacked, if some employee took away all the money. I can keep it in check. Proof of reserve, proofs of reserve are possible. Bitstamp did something, Kraken did something like that in 2014, I guess. Phoenix tried to do something like that with BitGo, but it didn't end very well because they used this method to hack Bitfinex. But I mean, it's possible in theory. You should not give your money to a trusted third party if it's not trusted. And this can help to make it trusted. Then you have something like disposable hardware. Disposable hardware, the main example right now is OpenDime. OpenDime, I think it's pronounced OpenDime. OpenDime is a little hardware which is not like a normal hardware wallet, which is very expensive and you keep it with you, it's your wallet. It's a disposable hardware. So you give it to other people, and if they trust, not you, because they don't know you, you just go into a cafe, you want to buy your coffee with Bitcoin. I don't know why, but you really want. A lot of people these days want to buy coffee with Bitcoin. It should be very cool. And so they want to do that. They give the OpenDime to the bartender. The bartender will have to trust at a certain level the builder of the hardware, but he will not have to trust you. So you are basically not using the blockchain. You are only passing over your private key, and then the owner will trust the hardware provider that you will not be able to access the private key, so you cannot double spend it. So it does work. If you have some question, we can discuss OpenDime a little bit, but it's a solution. For small amounts, it's probably a very good solution. Also for offline zones, like if you are in Africa, or if you are in Africa, you can use Blockstream satellite now. But if you are in China and you don't have Blockstream satellite covering you, you could want to, maybe you want to use OpenDime. Then there is the idea of using trusted hardware. So instead of having a blockchain, you will put this money not in a trusted third party, but you will put your money in the address of a trusted third party, but this trusted third party have some hardware guarantee that they will behave very well and they will just follow they will not steal your money, they will not censor your money. For example, Liquid from Blockstream is a solution like this. It's a multi-sig scheme with a strong federation and hardware security. And basically, you move your Bitcoin on Liquid. Liquid will move your coins without really using a blockchain. Yeah, it is like a blockchain, but is not based on proof of work. It's not really a blockchain. So it's super fast and super cheap. So you can move the money very, very fast. And you are not really trusting Blockstream completely because there are strong hardware check and balances that you can check. Or there is also another idea, which is T-chance. T-chance are a very, very old concept than some Cornell professor rediscovered, pretending that he invented it, but it's not true. But anyway, it's the concept of using, instead of using miners, use trusted, for example, IBM or Intel trusted computing environments, or maybe SGX stuff. And with this trusted computing environment, you can pass your money very, very fast and very, very cheap because you are doing like this, but with some guarantee. Yeah. So there are other ideas that I will not really explore right now, like Tumblebeat and similar solution. Basically, they are people started to work on this solution for privacy, not for scalability, but they also have some scalability benefit. They are also off-chain solution. Basically, we have to transact. Instead of putting our transaction on the blockchain, we create the pool of our transaction. We go to the blockchain together. So we use just one transaction for different inputs and outputs, and that will help our scalability somehow, even it's very difficult to coordinate in a meaningful way. Then there are two things that are Schnorr, signature, scriptless scripts, and must. I will not explain these into details because I don't really understand those now. I'm starting to try to understand it, and because they're quite complex. If you have some question, I can give you some detail about that. But the global idea is that instead of using the Bitcoin script in the blockchain, I will put in the blockchain only some specific parts of the script that I really need. So instead of putting there a multi-sig with all the public keys and all the private signatures, I will put there only only the sum of the signatures. So I put one signature that will count as 10, but it's just one. And must is something that will allow me to not reveal the entire script of the transaction, but only the specific parts of the script that I'm actually using. So this is somehow an off-chain scalability solution as well. For example, right now in Bitcoin, you cannot make a multi-sig scheme with 100 over 150. It's too much. You cannot fit that into a script. But with must, you can do that, and with Schnorr, you can probably do that. You can do that. Last solution of chain solution, which is the most promising one, it's already possible right now after the deployment of Segwit. Of course, people are still working on user interfaces, and there is one wallet that allows you to do that today, which is Eclair, a wallet from the French startup Async. The first days of September, you will have the Neutrino, the Lightning Labs wallet. So now you have wallets doing that. At the beginning of 2018, Green Address wallet, we start to do that with C Lightning implementation. But if you are more like a geek and you have your own full node, you can start to use C Lightning or Lightning Network Daemon, and you can try that. And it's working. Of course, there will be a lot of work to do for user experience and path discovery algorithm and a lot of stuff that can be done better. But it's working. I mean, some Cornell University professor, they say that it's vaporware, but it's actually a working in production vaporware. So it's good. The idea is the one of payment channels. You don't use the blockchain for every transaction. You create on the blockchain some bilateral channels, and then you just navigate these channels in order to pay. So I have, again, as always, to pay Sonia, but instead of, I don't have a channel with her. I have a channel with Jonathan where I put 1 Bitcoin 3 months ago, and Jonathan happens to have a channel not with Sonia, but with another another person that has a channel with Kevin Bacon that has a channel with Sonia. So using Lightning Network, if I have to pay her, instead of sending one transaction on chain, I will just atomically update my state with Jonathan, that will update it with the Mr. X, that will update it with Kevin Bacon, that will update it with Sonia. Everything will be trustless and atomic, so it either happens entirely or not at all. So it's not that my money can remain stuck in between. It will not happen. This is a very good scalability solution. It will probably be the first very big scalability solution. It's not perfect, though. You cannot do a good escrow on this. I don't know if you sometimes use escrow on Bitcoin, like for paying for exchanging your Bitcoin for a good. You actually don't trust the third party, so you use another party to escrow your transaction. You cannot do that trivially, like OpenBazaar. Suppose that OpenBazaar works. It doesn't really, but suppose that it does. You need escrows, and they are called probably valid. I don't remember the name, but you cannot do that with Lightning Network, not trivially. Also, it will take some time to actually bootstrap the network. So this is just the first challenge of Bitcoin, and you are already very, very sleepy and confused. So let's imagine how you will be in a few minutes, because now we switch to the privacy challenges. The privacy challenges are basically, in my opinion, more important than the scalability challenges. If using Bitcoin is expensive or slow, I don't care. We still have an expensive and slow solution to censorship resistance. We didn't have that before. If we want fast and cheap, we use databases. If you want censorship resistance, we use Bitcoin. Great. So I can pay, I can wait, because because what we are getting new is more important. But the problem is that the global consensus, the fact that in the blockchain everybody has to know everything about everybody else, as far as transactions go, this is very bad, because we did this thing in the first place to be censorship resistant, but if we don't have privacy, we have two problems. First, we are not censorship resistant anymore because somebody can retroactively censor us, treating us with consequences. For example, I want to pay to donate to WikiLeaks. The US government cannot stop me because I use Bitcoin, but they can trace me and de-anonymize me after. And now they will just arrest me the first moment I step down to the plane in New York. So they didn't censor me before, but the threat, the fact that they can do this will censor me anyway, because I will not donate to WikiLeaks because I'm scared about this possibility. So to protect privacy of the user is extremely important. Also, to protect confidentiality is very important for business as well. No business will use Bitcoin if they knew that it's super easy for competitors to track down everything they are doing on with their customers. Or if you are a very rich person and you don't want to be kidnapped, it's not very nice that everybody on the internet can easily de-anonymize you. Digital currencies experiment like eCash and B-Money were very private, but the blockchain ruined everything, because the blockchain forces everyone to share every information with anyone, and that's very bad for privacy and confidentiality of business and fungibility of the asset, because the asset, the digital gold, Bitcoin, doesn't work if it's not fungible. If before I accept Bitcoin, I have to check that this Bitcoin is not coming from the Silk Road or from WannaCry, basically all the economical system breaks down and it doesn't work anymore. It's not happening now because we don't have a serious adversarial, but it could happen. So it's very important to solve this. Of course, the problem are that we have global consensus, so everybody knows everything. And everything we are passing around is clear text. So many people think that blockchain, Bitcoin is encrypted. You know, we are using cryptography, so everything is encrypted. Wrong. We are not using cryptography to encrypt anything. We are using cryptography only to sign information. So we are using cryptographic signatures. We are not using cryptographic encryption. So Bitcoin is completely unencrypted, which is bad. So what are the solutions? Again, as you can see, the same scheme. We have on-chain privacy solution, which goes like this. First, one-use addresses. Instead of using the same addresses again and again, which is very bad for privacy because it's super easy to track you down, you know, account-based systems like Ethereum are super easy to de-anonymize, while UTXO-based systems like Bitcoin are more difficult to de-anonymize if you don't reuse your address. So when we do another meetup, we will not use this address again, not because there's something to hide in this meetup, but because if you do reuse your address, you are making privacy worse for everybody else in the network. So don't reuse the address. Generate a new address every time. Use wallets that do this. Of course, this is difficult to do because first you have to manage a lot of private keys. And so you have to use wallets that does hierarchical deterministic key management, like, well, all the good wallets do that. Check if your wallet is reusing the same address every time you receive money, you are using a very bad wallet. Also, there is another thing which is a little bit more technical, which is basically merge avoidance. Well, I will not explain this, but it's something difficult to do and to implement into payment protocol. Also, we can encrypt the transactions. So when we use our cell phone to receive Bitcoin or to send Bitcoin, we will connect to full nodes. And since nobody here except 4 people has their own full node, you will connect to other people's full node, maybe with the full node of the wallet provider. And you are actually exposing your own privacy because you are using the Bloom filters without any kind of encryption. Also, when you broadcast the transaction from your IP without using Tor, you are actually giving away the source of your transaction. There are a lot of ways in which encrypting the transaction will be better. It's not trivial to do. It's not the Bitcoin core developers didn't do that because it's not a good thing, but it's very difficult to do that right. So we could start to encrypt transaction, but it's not easy. Then we can use a specific variance of this, which is even more powerful, which is the ring signature. Ring signature and confidential transactions are 2 ways to basically hide the sender and the receiver or the sended amount. So you can either have some obscurity on the amount that you are passing or on the sender of the transaction or on the receiver or all the 3 things together if you combine these. An example of this is Monero. Monero blockchain, which is one of the most interesting alt chains out there. There is a serious development team working on Monero, unlike on almost any other project. This team is working on these two stuff. This stuff works. The problem that I will explain better in this slide, the problem is that it is in direct trade-off with scalability. So blockchain, Bitcoin transaction are low and expensive. Monero transactions are way slower and way more expensive because you are still having global consensus. Everybody knows everything, but now you want to encrypt these things with very, very heavy cryptography. So validate this transaction will be slower, will take more resources, and so you will have all the scalability problem worst. Even worse is using 0K stuff like Zcash, for example, uses ZK snarks. The first problem is that now we have superior alternatives to ZK snarks like ZK Starks, they don't need a trusted setup, or ZK Boo, which are even faster to validate. So Zcash is already using a very, very old idea. But the thing is that you're not even using some magic cryptography designed specifically to check transaction, but you're using general purpose zero-knowledge technology, which is heavier and slower and more expensive usually. So a Monero transaction is more expensive, more slow, and more difficult to validate than a Bitcoin transaction. A Zcash Z transaction is orders of magnitude worse. Basically, nobody in Zcash actually do use the Zcash transaction because, sorry? Vergecoin. I really don't. I never try to count the. I know about Zcash transaction because we actually tried to sign Z transaction. It was probably 7 minutes over one PC and probably something like few minutes to validate it. So impossible to use in real life. I mean, some people can use a Zcash Z transaction. But since it will be so expensive and so slow, few people will use it, and so your anonymity set will be very, very, very small, and so it's pointless. So we go to this. So all these solutions, also the first one, the simple one, like using different addresses every time, even these makes your scalability worse. So this kind of on-chain privacy solution are in direct trade-off with your scalability. So the more privacy you have, the less scalability you have. This is very important because this means that you can go this way, but you are getting privacy at expenses of your scalability. So all the previous problems are getting worse. And this is probably not a good thing in the long run. You still have some different designs. Basically, still Mimblewimble approved chains are also solving this kind of privacy problem, while Bitcoin NG and other designs and IOTA Tangle are not solving anything in this sense. But you also have off-chain privacy systems. The nice thing is that in this slide, you will have a déjà vu if you're not sleeping. You will have a déjà vu because many of these solutions are actually the same solution that we use for scalability. So if you are using, for example, Lightning Network, you are getting more scalability and also more privacy. If you are using Tumblebleed, if you're using Schnorr and Mast, I added CoinJoin and CoinSwap, but I don't know a lot about this. Adam there knows a lot about that, so you can stalk him after the talk. He's an expert on CoinSwap and CoinJoin, and so please stalk him later. But all the other, I mean, if you use a OpenDime to pass over some Bitcoins, you are also protecting your privacy because you are not hitting the blockchain with all your information. You are keeping your information to yourself and your counterparty, and only after the settlement will eventually use the blockchain. So these solutions are also used for scalability. I try to go quicker because probably, I don't know how much time did I consume, but probably a lot. I go ahead. When the last one fades, I will stop. Yeah. So please, when you're starting to pass out, do that in a very evident manner, so I can stop. The other problem is expressivity. Expressivity means that there is a lot of hype about smart contracts. Everybody wants to do smart contract. I want to create a DAO that will take money and put that into some kind of automatic escrow to do some kind of ICO with some kind of revenue model with a smart contract. Automatic insurances, automatic investment funds, automatic equities, automatic royalties. Very, very cool stuff in the future. The problem is that the Bitcoin blockchain is not very expressive. Why? Because Satoshi Nakamoto was dumb and he didn't thought about a more expressive script language? No. Because they tried a more expressive script language and they understood that it was bad for security. Because the more complex and the more powerful and expressive your scripted language inside the transaction is, the more easy is that your contract has bugs. And if you have bugs with the trusted third-party software, you just ask for a chargeback. If you have bugs in your trustless DAO contract, you are out of luck. And you have to call Vitalik Buterin to reverse all the history of the blockchain. And you can do that, of course, he will do that, but not always. I mean, he is busy. So how can you have security and still have some kind of expressivity in your language? Also, there is another problem, which is coordination. If you, the more expressive your language is, the more difficult it will be to coordinate different script versioning and different interpretation, non-deterministic builds of the same software on different computers. Coordination, the more things your contract does, the worse it is for security and for coordination. So what are the solutions? Again, on-chain expressivity solutions or off-chain expressivity solution. Can you see the pattern here? Is always the same pattern. So what about on-chain? The first solution would be, for example, to take something like Ethereum, a Turing-complete system with rich statefulness. I don't know what that is, but Vitalik says that it's very important. So you have rich statefulness, and so now you can finally use the Ethereum virtual machine and do Turing-complete rich stateful stuff. Great, except that no. You can put this system on Bitcoin, for example, using Rostock federated sidechain. But the problem is that you still have all the security problem of Ethereum, which are a lot. I mean, one of the creators of the Solidity language actually wasn't able to create a safe multi-sig contract on parity, and so it was hacked, and a lot of people lost a lot of money. Why? Because this guy is not smart. No, he is very smart, but he could not create a good contract with the language that he himself designed, because this language is too much impossible to predict, too much not deterministic. Solidity is actually very, very bad for determinism. Is heavily unpredictable. So this is not probably a good solution. There is another solution which is more conservative, and actually people back then in probably 2013, they tried it. It was called OpEval. It was a Bitcoin of code that allowed you to do a lot of complex contracts. It was an alternative to P2SH, but it was dangerous. And so people in Bitcoin didn't create a very, very expressive language on top of Bitcoin, not because they were lazy, but because this kind of expressiveness was dangerous, and it was very easy to create loops and side effects and stuff. There is another attempt, which is covenants. but I don't have the time to explain it, and I'm not super interested in that. And also there are meta protocols like Counterparty or Mastercoin. So basically, you don't change the Bitcoin security system. You just create a meta system on top of Bitcoin. The problem with this on-chain solution is that, try to guess, they are, yes, in trade-off against scalability and also in trade-off against privacy in a I mean, less significant way. So basically, the more stuff you put on your blockchain for expressivity, the worse your scalability will be. Think about EVM, Ethereum. In Bitcoin, every node has to check every transaction signature and every transaction proof of work. This is already very, very bad because this is not scalable, not private. In Ethereum, every transaction, every node has to actually compute every single contract with the storage, with the computation, with everything, not just to check the signatures and to check the proof of work. They have to actually discover the solution of the problem again, independently and redundantly. Is not distribution, is replication of effort, is the worst thing you can imagine. Indeed, right now, if you compare the cost of computing on Ethereum and the cost of computing on Amazon the AWS, you have orders of magnitude of difference, because using every node of the network to replicate your computation doesn't scale. And also it's not private, so it's very, very bad. If you're going to do a public contract on the blockchain, everybody will look at your contract on the blockchain, which is not useful for many business purposes. So the alternative idea is to follow off-chain expressivity solutions. This could be completely off-chain solution, like extensions to payment protocol. For example, we use normal Bitcoin transaction, but beforehand, we communicate with the payee, between the payee and the payer in order to create complex split payments or merge avoidance payments or covenants or whatever, and lock time, check load time verify, check sequence verify. We can create a lot of complex contract off-chain, and the on-chain transaction will just be a result of that. Also, we can use, again, trusted third parties, this time with the proof of process. So we can use, again, maybe liquid federation or Rootstock federation, but instead of using a blockchain there, we will just use a proof of process. So we will ask to these people to give us a proof that they actually respected the contract that we asked them to run, which is more scalable, more private, a little bit less secure, but it depends. It really depends on the assumptions. Trusted computing, it's a little bit more than this. In this case, you are trusting the third party to do something, and you ask them to give you some kind of proof. In this case, you actually know that this party will have strong hardware securities that they will not do anything different from your contract. So you can actually trust them more. Another idea would be to use ZK stuff. ZK stuff is not a new kind of zero-knowledge proof, is my way to express all the general ZK proofs. And you can use that not to create a privacy solution on blockchain, which is not very scalable, it's not a very good idea in my opinion. But you can use that in order to create general purpose smart contracts. So imagine that Bitcoin nodes, instead of checking the signatures and the proof of work, they will start to check also the solution to a zero-knowledge problem. So they will not run the contract. They will just check that you did run the contract and the solution is right. This is quite a strange concept. Zero-knowledge proof are a very difficult concept to grasp. So if you are confused, that's okay. Anyway, there is free food, so you're not here for nothing. But if you want to study this field, this is very, very important and very, very interesting. So, getting to the conclusions, still other two challenges. One is user experience. So user experience on Bitcoin is bad. Very, 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 very bad. How can we solve it? One way is to implement smarter payment protocols. One other way is that we will have incumbents step in. What I mean with that? I mean, right now, good Bitcoin wallet developers are hackers. They are cypherpunks. They are very, very good with security. They know Bitcoin, but they are not super interested in user experience. They do everything with command line, and they despise you if you use graphical interfaces. So they are not the best people probably to do good user experience. While people working for Facebook or for Apple, they will be probably very, very bad for security with these assumptions, but they will be very good in user experience. So probably when they will start to interact with us, something better will happen in this, on this point of view. Also, we can, again, use trusted third party. For example, if you are an investor and you don't care about security and you just trust your bank for any kind of investment and you want to invest in Bitcoin, I mean, you just wait for your bank to invest in Bitcoin on your behalf, because you are not a Bitcoin user. You are just a Bitcoin speculator. And so UX will be better for them if we just trust a third party. Trusted? No, this is wrong. User education. Right now, users don't know Bitcoin. They are, everybody in this room is a super power user, but outside this room, they just don't have a clue. And so they will have to learn and to get better. And finally, time and patience. You just wait, and user experience will be better. To send an email in 1994 was a horrible experience. To send a Bitcoin transaction now or to receive it is a horrible experience. That's completely okay. That's you just have to wait, because with adoption, you will get better third-party solution for user experience. Just wait, or better, work to do something to implement it. Last challenges, and I will close, it's political independence challenges. So basically, how can I prevent political adversaries of Bitcoin, which mean everybody who doesn't like financial privacy, censorship resistance, asset independence? So how can I stop central banks or tax agencies or NSA or Hillary Clinton if she doesn't like WikiLeaks? I don't know. There are a lot of people that will not love Bitcoin because it's going against their interests. In order to stop these people from interfering with the protocol, we can do three things. One thing is something I do a lot, but it's not super effective. And it's a cultural war. I just go out and I yell, "This is bad, you should not censor transaction, you should not blacklist, this is an attack on Bitcoin fungibility, stop it, bad boy." We can do that. Probably part of the resilience of the ecosystem relies on the fact that we also have a strong culture. So if a bad actor like, I don't know, Mike Hearn wants to implement blacklist, we just yell at him and we accuse him of being a traitor. That's helpful, but it's probably not very efficient. Also, if BitPay tries to scam customers, making them download a fake version of Bitcoin without telling them, it's because of it. Of course, we can say that BitPay guys are scammers, and we do say that, but it's not enough, it's not efficient. It's a lot of time and effort. There are better solutions. One would be to work to have aligned incentives. For example, if corrupt politicians will start to use Bitcoin to take bribes, that's way better than this, because they will not be against Bitcoin privacy, because they are taking bribes in Bitcoin. If NSA starts to pay black ops operation in Bitcoin, they will not be so eager to use Bitcoin to stop Bitcoin from being private or censorship resistant. Something similar happening with Tor. US government is using Tor a lot. So we have a kind of reasonable assumption that they will not try to attack Tor too much, because they are using it. So this is very, very good. The third idea is protocol ossification. So what if Bitcoin protocol stops changing? This can appear like a very, very bad thing, But if you think about that, IP protocol, internet protocol, stopped changing at version 4 in the 70s, and is still version 4 right now. Of course, there is a better alternative, which is version 6. But to change from version 4 to version 6 is super, it will happen eventually, but it's super hard, super slow, super difficult, because you have to update everything. So let's imagine a Bitcoin, which is like this. Does that mean, I mean, the fact that you cannot change TCP/IP, does that mean that you cannot use internet, that internet is not evolving, that better competitors are taking over instead of internet? No, because internet is not a protocol. Internet is not a product. Product has to adapt very fast. Internet is an infrastructure level open protocol. So internet doesn't have to change very fast. It can be slow to change. And if you want to censor internet because you are in North Korea or you are in Turkey or you are in Italy and you want to censor internet, it's difficult to do that because internet, you cannot change it very easily. And that's a feature. What if Bitcoin gets there? Bitcoin can get there, but there is a problem, is that it's not yet, probably, is not good enough to stop changing it forever. There are still some things that we want to change, some for scalability, some for privacy, some for expressivity. For example, SegWit was something that we wanted to implement in Bitcoin. So how can we stop changing Bitcoin and so having it resistant from political assaults if we still need to change it a little bit? It's like we don't have IPv4 and TCP, we have IPv2 and no TCP. So we don't have the internet yet. We want to get there, but we want to prevent attacks on our protocol from external malicious third parties. So how can we do that? So, and I close, there are a few ways to upgrade Bitcoin. The first way is to create altcoins, altchains, so alternative chains, and to let them compete on the market, which is good, but has several problems with that. Basically, Bitcoin relies on network effects, monetary network effects, and technological network effects. Every time you create an altcoin, you are destroying Bitcoin's network effects. Because the global utility of a coin, I mean, if you have one coin with 1 billion market cap, and you have two coins with 500 million market cap each, it is not the same. The utility of these two $500 million coin will be less, way less, than the global utility of the $1 billion coins. The same happens with hashing power, hash rate. If now you have Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash, the security of Bitcoin plus the security of Bitcoin Cash is way, way lower than the security of Bitcoin before the fork. So every time you create a new coin, you're actually eroding monetary network effects. Imagine if you had the wealth. Right now on the cryptocurrency you have $170 billion, kind of. Not really, doesn't make any sense to measure like that. It's probably mostly fake, but let's assume you have that. Imagine if this kind of money distributed equally over an infinite number of different coins. The final average value of each coin would be 0. The fact that some coin has value is just because there is friction against the equal distribution. If you have equal distribution among every coin, you have 0 value on each coin. Network effects are very important, because if you don't have that, then Bitcoin value is 0, and every other coin's value is 0. So there is an alternative. What about fork chains like Bitcoin Cash, and like probably Bitcoin 2x in November, another hard fork attack, which would be a little bit less honest than this. Bitcoin Cash was pretty honest. They used the name Bitcoin, but they changed the symbol a little bit, rotating it, better than nothing. And they included the Bitcoin, the reply attack protection. I mean, they destroyed a bit of network effect, but still is not super scammy. While the November R4 attack, Bitcoin 2x, apparently they want to do that calling it Bitcoin and without reply protection. So much more dangerous for the network. But anyway, they will lose anyway. But the idea of a fork chain is better because you don't lose monetary network effects, but you still lose security network effect. Well, it's too late to explain, but if you have questions about that, I will go more into depth to that. So fork chains, in my opinion, if they are honest, so if they don't try to scam the users presenting themselves as Bitcoin, fork chains are better than alt chains. What will be even better will be side chains. So new blockchains where you can actually move Bitcoin from one to the other and back in a trustless way. This will be probably the best way to update the Bitcoin protocol without serious risks. The last solution is whatever, I don't care. I mean, internet will not go to IPv6. It will stay where it is. We will not update it. And even if it's not perfect, we will make it work. And we will just work around it with hacks and fixes and patches. And we will just not upgrade Bitcoin anymore. It would be a pity because there is some things that could be done better, but eventually this could be a solution. If the only alternative is to have governments trying to manipulate and to distort and to corrupt Bitcoin, this solution is better than nothing. Thank you very much. And questions? So I anticipate the first question, where is the food, is there. But if you have other questions, you can ask.
Thanks for the presentation, very interesting. You just assumed that the hard fork in November will fail. Why? Because code developers said we will implement SegWit, transaction will be faster and cheaper, but they are not. So people maybe will think the miners are right.
So I think that it would fail for this reason. I think that the main stakeholders, so the people that has more power. So in Bitcoin, nobody has the control. Not miners, otherwise they would have already different blocks, bigger blocks because they can centralize better. No, the developer, because the developer wanted SegWit 2 years ago and no hard fork, and they have SegWit now with one hard fork and maybe two. So the developers are not controlling the network. The investors, the exchanges, nobody, no single user is controlling the network. That is very good. But the thing is that if you have to bet on which is the most powerful constituency on the network, well, in open source, in very advanced and complex open source free project, I mean, if you think about Linux kernel development, who has the greatest power on the development of Linux? The developers. Why? Because the other people can yell, but they cannot force good developers to work on what they want to work. And if you don't have good developers, and you don't if you are not inside the Bitcoin community, because the skills are all in Bitcoin Core, so your solution will suck, it will be full of bugs, and it will be easy to exploit and easy to attack. It will not keep the peace with Bitcoin. So basically, developers are not super powerful, but they're very important. And I mean, venture capitalists in America or Chinese miners, they don't have Bitcoin developers. Bitcoin developers are volunteer, cypherpunk, mostly hackers. They don't care about money. They care about changing the world, and it's not easy to buy them off. You can buy some of them off, but luckily just the worst of them, and mostly 2 or 3 of them, which were not very, very, very good anyway. So I'm very optimistic because developers are still mostly committed to the original vision of Bitcoin. Also, which is censorship resistant and freedom. I'm not talking about coffee, free coffee. Also, the other big stakeholder, Bitcoin, Linux is an open source project, while Bitcoin is an open source project and also a monetary asset. So the stakeholders in monetary assets are big owner or big sender. They are hodlers or whales, people that moves a lot of money. So these people, they will probably be happier to have, since they are not doing cheap transaction to buy coffee, they are the ones moving a shitload of money, they will be happier to have a very, very censorship-resistant, independent asset than to have a very, very cheap and fast asset, because they don't care about fast and cheap. They are moving millions. And since they're moving millions, they are influencing the result of the forks and the splits more than people buying coffee. Because if they're moving million, then their asset will be more worthy, and then the miners will follow profitability, not ideology, we hope, and they will move to mine the most profitable chain. So since I think that hodlers, big whales, have incentives to stay on Bitcoin, and developers are 99 good developers are only in Bitcoin so far. It will change eventually, but not now. I think that every fork attempt will fail in the long run, and probably the November attempt will fail before it begins. That's all.
Thank you.
I'm just wondering, what's your view on what's happening with EOS, and how do you judge by what's available now? Yeah.
The ICOs like EOS. EOS, the token, you mean?
Yeah.
So I did another presentation that you can look up. I did it in ODS the first time, and in Zurich the second time. And maybe Sonia can share it with the group. And there I express what I think about ICOs.
Yeah, it's posted on our website, on Facebook page, We Get Crypto Meetup, so you can see an amazing presentation about ICOs. I mean, watch it, it's so funny.
Well, also it's shorter than this, so yeah. So you can watch it. And there I express my views. To sum it up, I think that all this permissionless innovation is great. So it's great for experimenting. Unfortunately, right now, it's great to prove that there is nothing really serious going on there. I don't think that any one of the past ICO, EOS included, has any serious technological background. I think they're mostly marketing stunts with some technology buzzword on it. But I would be happy to be wrong, especially in the future. I think that it's nice that people try to do stuff. I mean, even if some ICOs are scummy, all of them, right now, except two, even then, it's still better this way than to have a regulator stepping in and telling you what you can buy or what you cannot buy and protecting you by yourself. I mean, somebody in the Bitcoin ecosystem is cheering because the SEC is starting to attack scammy ICOs. I am not that happy. I mean, it was predictable, but I'm not that happy. I think that the best way to learn is to try and to suffer. Don't buy ICO tokens with all your money, please. But if you want to learn, buy something and suffer, and you will learn.
Any questions? Maybe the last one, and we will have a break, because I believe everyone's hungry.
Thank you for the presentation, first of all. I just wanted to have a quick remark, because you say that the Bitcoin Cash is a good one. And that was the whole idea, that main people are against it because they give free money to everybody with Bitcoin. So think about it, you hate it, but you have lots of that for free. So why not doing that? So maybe I think the most unethical way that they did it by just giving free money to some people, and I can't accept that that's, you know, like they call it BCH, like bitch, you know, that just try to go to the whole idea of the whole thing about Bitcoin Cash. But if really Bitcoin is going to have like 4 by the November, and the whole idea that as you can have those things here, I think we're too technical right now about Bitcoin, and I don't think everybody looks at Bitcoin like that. Somebody just have their mining facilities and they're just looking at what is the best thing for coining facilities. And again, like a very quick remark right now with China, because they literally right now everything, like ICO things in China is going down. So can we call it like a Chinese Bitcoin right now? When you don't have money, you cannot bet on the ICO, so you go back and try to go for the Chinese Bitcoin. And then if it's going to be better, so people with the mining, they're going to start going to this idea. And if they're going to understand there is another idea, then people with mining are going to have their own sites. On the other hand, day traders, they don't care about if ICO is going to fail or going to just lose. They're just going to have 150% in 2 weeks by having an ICO and then put their money back into either gold, dollar, or whatever else that they're going to have. So how do you see, like, when we are not going to have one such a strong coin, and some people as a day traders, they're going to look different. Some people as people who basically want to make their own mining, they're going to have a different way, and some people like technical like you, how do you think, like, who is going to be big player and is going to be the leader? Because every one of them are here for the money.
So very good points. The first point is a fork coin as opposed to an altcoin. So a fork chain as opposed to a alt chain. A fork coin like Bitcoin Cash is basically doing a airdrop to every Bitcoin owner. If you own a Bitcoin, now you also own Bitcoin Cash. And this can be seen as a fraudulent way to actually, it could be seen as less honest than an altcoin. With an altcoin, I create my new project and I give it to you. Well, most altcoins just copy the Bitcoin code, so they're anyway parasites. But anyway, but you can say that it's more honest if you just start from scratch. Then you have pre-mining, Insta mining. I don't really like those. The initial distribution of Bitcoin was quite fair. But the real thing is that even if the intention is a little bit more scammy, the global effect will be less dangerous, because in this way you are basically diluting the value among infinite number of assets. While in this case, it's like the split of an equity on the stock exchange. So you have a company, you split the shares. It's not that you are diluting the investors, because you can buy one Bitcoin. Even if tomorrow I tell you that will be 2 forks, 3 forks, 10 forks, 100 forks, and you just give up to the idea of one Bitcoin and you just get along with that, you are still financially protected, because your wealth will be split, but you will be still owning part of the wealth. So if you imagine the limit of infinite fork coins, the value of one investor of an original Bitcoin will not go to zero. While if you assume there is existence of infinite equal altcoins, the value of each is zero. So you are right, fork coins can be more ambiguous, scammy, and dishonest, but they are less destructive, in my opinion, than complete altcoins. So that's so the second question is, yeah, but what about the money? I mean, yeah, you're giving a technical talk, but nobody cares, nobody understands, so people will just buy stuff. That's fine, because I want a free, independent, censorship-resistant financial system. If an alternative can deliver it, fine. I own Bitcoin, so I bet on the wrong horse. I will lose some money. Probably I will sell, I will buy the new stuff, and I'm okay with that. So I don't care, except for financially, but ideologically, if somebody else can deliver something better than Bitcoin or as good as Bitcoin, I'm okay with that. If they cannot, then I'm not okay with that, but that means that in the end, these people will not have the feature of Bitcoin. If you have Chinese Bitcoin controlled by the Chinese government, right now it can sound like something cool, but after 5 years, you will start thinking, but why I am using Chinese Bitcoin in the first place? I mean, The government can censor it, can control it. So why I'm wasting energy? Why are we doing this? There is no reason to have a blockchain in a permissionless system. No reason at all. I mean, I know that IBM and R3 will tell you that you're using the permissionless blockchain, but that's just snake oil. It doesn't make any sense. If you want the permissionless stuff, you use a traditional centralized system. If you want permissionless, you use the blockchain, which is inefficient, not private, very, very bad for a lot of things. So if you get back to have a permissionless system because your fork coin was, if your EOS token was scammy, it's in the long run, it's useless. And the market eventually will go to appreciate that. Let's do this example. We are in 1998. .com bubble is going to explode. Everybody wants to invest in pet.com and whatever.com. We analyze the technology. We understand that that's just craziness. And we give a talk about that craziness. And the question is, how do you stop traders and people from lose money on .com, pet.com? You can't. And I mean, you don't care. You can try to explain people, but if they want to listen, they will invest. The smart one will invest soon. They will cash out and they will make profit. Good for them. They are helping the market to price. And the last ones will lose a lot of money, and the market will crash and the bubble will burst. It happened before. It will happen with altcoins and fork coins and ICOs and stuff. I don't care. I own Bitcoin. If I was a good trader, the best idea would be to be technologically knowledgeable and a good trader. So you know that in the long run it's just Bitcoin, but you also make a lot of profit riding scam coins. That would be the best. I cannot do that because I'm a shitty trader, so I just hold Bitcoin.
Okay, thank you, Giacomo, for your awesome presentation.
Thank you, and happy meal.
Before we start the break and eat pizza, I want to introduce you some people who helped organize the event, who are sponsors of the event, because without them, this event wouldn't happen. The first person is my brother. Come here. Przemo. Big applause. And Przemo will introduce our sponsors and tell you what they are doing, and maybe then you can have a chat with them during the break because they do really cool stuff.
Right. Can you hear me well? Yeah, everything is fine. All right. So basically, yeah, it's switched. Yeah, it switched. Right now it's okay. Sorry, I didn't have I didn't have time to test it. So basically, the first, as my sister said, we are the sponsors. FBT, we are doing fiat-based token, so we want to move normal fiats into smart contract environment. So we'll give fiats on Ethereum and other platforms. We want to do something like cross blockchain solution for all smart programs platforms. The second one, the second of our sponsor is experty.io. Here we have Grzegorz and Mateusz.
Go on the stage. Say hello to everyone.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Grzegorz, come on.
Hello. Maybe Mateusz can talk a few things about that. Just 3 sentences. We want to create the possibility to generate the additional source of income to every knowledge workers all around the world, even for people in unbanked area like Venezuela. How to do it? We created the Skype-like, the centralized Skype-like application, but for paid consultation. And in fact, according to the speech of Giacomo, we are going to do maybe not shitcoin, But of course, it will be the ICO to make the project global, and we, in fact, we are going to combine towards the blockchain technology and mass market potential. Our vision is to make the technology of blockchain for everyone. Thank you very much. And here is our Solidity developer. If you got any technical question.
Sorry,
please.
of course, sponsors of the events are always excluded by any scam accusation, always. So,
Thanks for disclaimer.
Okay, so thank you.
Thank you very much. Without you, there would be no Wicked Crypto Meetup. And the second sponsors, the third one, are Crypto Koparki. So I don't know. I cannot see them.
Mining equipment, GPUs.
They are creating. Oh, there is Przemek Nowicki. So if anybody of you would like to try of mining altcoins or bitcoins, maybe this person is the one that can help you with that. Here we have the first generator of this heat here. It's a miner, yeah, for altcoins. It's running on GPU processor. The second generator. So here is Przemysław, Przemek Nowicki.
Go on the stage, show yourself to everyone so that people know who to approach.
And there is Bolo. I mean,
Hello,
Paweł
waiting for you.
Obolewicz. Come on. All right, so these two persons can actually build a special miner for you. Thank you, guys, that you give us the possibility to make this meetup real. Do you want to say something?
Hello everyone, my name is Przemek and this is my business partner and my friend for years, Paweł. We are the owners of the CryptoKoparki.com, like pierogi or bigas, CryptoKoparki. We are producing these machines, we are selling it, we help you to make everything good and to mine as much altcoins as you can. So if you have any questions or you want to buy some machines from us, we can chat through the break. This is all. You can visit our website. You can find us on Facebook, Cryptoświry, and you can find us on YouTube. This is the channel of Paweł. It's called CryptoBolo, and then you can find lots of stuff for now in Polish language, but we are working about making in English. So thank you very much for today. Have a great pizza, have a great beer, water, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. This is the first generator of the heat. The second one is in the corner there. There are a lot of pizzas. I don't know how much there is left, but
But wait,
I
we
think
have a
there's
fourth sponsor, right?
Yeah, there is another sponsor that came today because our QR codes that are here actually are our donation wallets. So if anybody of you would like to become one of the sponsor of our meetup, you can scan our code. It's like that.
I mean, apparently it doesn't work.
So it's a Crypto Academy. Come on. So this is our third sponsor. Fourth, sorry. Yeah.
Thank you so much for donation. Thanks to Crypto Academy.
This small presentation will be in Polish. Yeah. Very fast. Very quick, sorry.
Tobiasz Olszewski, jestem CEO Crypto Academy. Firma Crypto Academy istnieje 3 miesiące. Jesteśmy w Business Linku na Stadionie Narodowym i Business Link Zebra. Głównie zajmujemy się edukacją całej społeczności o blockchainie i o bitcoinie. Także dzisiaj zasponsorowaliśmy Wam pizzę. Życzymy smacznego. Dziękuję.
Super, dziękujemy bardzo.